Well, this is where we'll leave Paul McCartney and Wings and a little luck, because I was saying earlier on we're going to be talking babies' dummies and the things that get on to babies' dummies. And I'm delighted to say that we've got Dr. Ronald Cutler on the line and Tess Clarke. Now, they're the experts on this because I know nothing about this. I do remember, well, we'll chat as it. So, good morning, Ronald.
Good morning.
And Tess?
Good morning.
Yeah, morning. Nice to chat to you this morning. I think, although it may well be that by the time you've finished, I'm feeling quite delicate. Babies' dummies. Can you tell us a bit more about the research that you carried out and what you found out when you looked more closely at the bacteria that was getting onto dummies?
Yeah, certainly. Basically, what we did is a little survey. We're interested in looking at what exists in our environment and any potential human threat there might be there. So what we actually did is we looked at, first of all, taking some new dummies and just dropping them on different surfaces, and we're only interested in where we get what we call gross contamination, like the whole dummy is contaminated with very high levels of bugs. So we looked at the ones from the environment, and we then took some dummies which were from all over the country, really, and we measured to see what in-use dummies were actually carrying.
Mm-hmm.
And
sorry.
No, go.
Well, I was just going to say, actually, one of the things I should have done is actually sort of highlighted your qualifications to be talking about this, because you headed this up, the research group, but you're an expert in infectious diseases. You've worked in the NHS and in the universities, and a fellow of the Royal Society in Public Health, the Society of Biology, and the Institute of Biomedical Sciences.
Yeah, afraid so.
So I think in layman's terms, you know what you're talking about.
I would sincerely hope so.
Well, certainly. So, dummies from all over the country. What were you expecting to find?
Well, we never expect to find anything. We've done a lot of surveys about different environments, and we were the people involved in looking at pound notes, mobile phones, and everything else. And it's just a thing that we're interested in, seeing how the bacteria in the human environment are changing. And so what we thought we would find is a relatively clean set of dummies. Now,
sorry, I laugh at it.
You're not the only one. But anyway, so what we expected to find is, a nice clean set of babies' soothers, shall we say? And
considering where it's going to go, you'd have expected something like that, wouldn't you? Because it's going to go in a brand new baby's mouth that's got.
Absolutely. And so when we did the survey looking at different environments, we were a bit surprised to find that the one that was seemingly picking up the most bacteria was the ones dropped in kitchens. We've done surveys of places like that before, and we thought, well, they're generally quite clean. But in this case, unfortunately, it wasn't one of the best.
Any ideas why that might be?
Dirty floor. I'm afraid. It's quite a simple explanation, yeah.
So when I drop a chip on the kitchen floor, and I think I'm not leaving that. No.
Well, it depends how clean you are, doesn't it, really?
Give it a quick wipe, it'll be right, don't worry.
Yeah, give the chip a quick the chip on the floor, one of the two.
No.
So we found, as I said, about 10-11% of the new dummies got contaminated from the environment.
Before we come on to that, just a bit, I want to find out. You haven't told me some of the things that you found. You know, what were they contaminated with, and how dangerous are they?
Okay, the environmental dummies were basically contaminated mainly with environmental bacteria, things like Pseudomonas. But there were quite a few with an organism called Staphylococcus, which viewers may have heard about because MRSA is a Staphylococcus.
I've not heard it as Staphylococcus. When I said it a moment ago, it was Staphylococcus. I didn't quite know the pronunciation. Staphylococcus, I can cope with that.
Yeah, it just means bunches of grapes in Greek, funnily enough. So, so we found out those organisms were there, which, considering the fact we were looking at human places that man had been, that's not really surprising, because we drop bugs everywhere as we walk along.
Yeah, and babies throw them and they hang on their clothes and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So with this in mind, we then looked at dummies that came from babies, and we investigated those. And
so this is the dummies that actual babies had been sucking?
Yeah,
right, okay.
Absolutely, and not being cleaned. And so they passed it on to us, and we looked at the samples, and unfortunately we found about 16% of them were actually grossly or heavily contaminated. And the major bugs that were there, of course, related to human skin and human feces. Yeah. The most common.
Babies do two things, don't they? Goes in one end and out the other.
They certainly do. Unfortunately, you don't want to make that a repeating situation where they're pushing it in one end and it's coming back out the other a lot faster than it went in.
Food processing.
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, no,
absolutely.
Indeed. Yeah. So that's. They're in babies, they're dummies that have been sucked and used by babies.
I mean, for the most part, I should say, though, 80% of them, 90% of them were good. They were clean, and people were obviously looking after them properly, the dummies, that is, and the babies. Yeah. It was only in this it's this 10% to 16% of the dummies where we found gross contamination. And the bugs that we found there were a strange thing called Enterococcus fecalis. And if you understand the word fecalis, you can imagine where it actually comes from. And
let me just think on that. How's it spelled? Moving on.
Yeah. So that was a concern. But one of the things that we should really I'd like to express to whoever's listening is the fact that the dummies, which were there was dummies that had been used just for 3 months, but then there was some that was used 6 and 9 months, and it does seem to be that the dummies that were 6 and 9 months old were the ones that were more likely to be contaminated than the ones that were younger, shall we say?
Well, I'm thinking about a dummy that's sort of been with a child for 6 months or 9 months. The places it will have been and got into, and oh my goodness, it's veritably colonised.
Well, being chewed all the time, and if they haven't been cleaned properly, and I'm sure my colleague will tell you about how to clean those particular items properly.
I was going to say, because there's two things there. One, we perhaps need to change dummies a little more often than we do if we've got some dummies that have been about for 9 months.
Once every 3 or 4 months.
Every 3 or 4 months they should be changed. Right. And then the second thing is what you do to minimise the risk.
Absolutely.
Is this where Tess comes in?
That's where Tess comes in, yes.
Right, OK, Tess, what do you do?
Of course. I mean, here at Milton, we actually recommend to sterilise baby soothers up to 1 year of age, because up until a year old, a baby's immunity is much lower, and it's actually particularly low at 6 months old. And it just means that making parents aware that they really need to keep their baby's dummies sterile, because these harmful bugs that Dr. Cutler spoke about, in real terms, and as a mum myself, what they actually mean is poorly babies, upset tummies, disrupted family life, sleepless nights, and no parent wants that. Everybody wants to protect their baby as much as they can. And for me, the most worrying thing was that the dummies that were dropped in soft play centres and kitchen floor were actually the worst contaminated. And in Oldham, you've got 2,910 babies approximately born each year. And if you go by the research, that could mean of those babies using soothers, up to a fifth of those could be grossly contaminated. So it really highlights the need for parents to sterilise soothers both at home and on the go, using a portable soother steriliser. So they're just making sure they're keeping those good practices and washing their hands and just watching when babies dropped it and never giving your baby a dirty soother.
Yeah, making sure that it's clean.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so easy nowadays. We've got a portable device that you can, attach to your buggy, so it's with you all the time. Keep one dummy sterile. The baby's always got one. And as we know, my baby did it. They throw them out and they think it's a great game. But then parents are ultimately the winners, because they've got a steriliser, with their dummy inside. They can give it to baby, take the dirty one, put it back in the steriliser, and they're good to go. So, baby can spit it out all day long. And, parents have got that peace of mind, which was ultimately what we all want.
Now, the traditional method in the part of the world is dummy picked up, wiped on arm or on sleeve, quick dip into the adult's parent's mouth, a quick lick round, plonk back in the baby's mouth. Tess, what's your opinion on that sort of method of hygiene?
I definitely can't agree with that, I'm afraid. I'm all for keeping your soother absolutely, in a sterile environment, like I said, for the first year of the baby's life, and And having had a baby myself, I can't imagine wanting to pass on any of these nasty germs. And parents don't know what germs they're carrying, whether they've had coughs or colds or illnesses. So the best thing, if parents are in any doubt at all, is to use a sterilised soother from a portable steriliser. And there's no risk then to your baby, is there?
And the portable sterilisers are easy to be purchased, I presume?
Yeah, of course. They're available in retailers, so baby shops, supermarkets and pharmacies across the UK. If you've got any questions at all, parents want to know where to buy one from or any advice, or they want any more information about the research, they can just go to the Milton Facebook page, and we've got a team of experts that are ready and waiting to answer mums' questions, because we know that there could be a lot more information that's wanted by mums.
Well, that's it, and particularly sometimes young mums who are doing this for the first time, you want to do your best for your baby and to make sure that they're healthy. And by keeping them healthy, it means that you get better sleep and you don't have all that worry.
Of course, and that's what we're here for. It's ultimately to protect babies and their family environment. So if any parents have got any questions at all about sterilisation or keeping their baby's environment, safe and hygienic, then we're here to help, because we know how difficult it is, and I personally do, with having a small baby and all the other things there are to worry about. Let's not let soother germs be one of them.
Well, Tess and Ron, thank you very much for chatting to us. I trust that I'll keep my eyes out what mums are doing with their with dummies in town centres and such like things, just from here on in. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thanks very much.
Thanks
very
for your time.
much. Thanks.